Alright, so this is the work for 1015 for 8th grade. And today what we're going to cover is scatter plots. So I'm going to say this at the very beginning, so I need you to make sure after you complete these, after we go through this video and you complete these on here, you need to log into Imagine Math and take the scatter plot lesson. So these should be all the answers. They might be out of order for you, but these should be all the answers and how to do all the questions on the guided learning and the practice part of the scatter plots lesson. But you are going to need to make sure that you pay attention, that you understand how to do this, because you are going to have to take the post quiz by yourself. So it says, which point represents the smallest size raisin box with the highest price? So what I'm going to do, you need to also make sure you're doing this as well as making sure that we're drawing on this, not just putting the letter, but drawing, writing exactly what I write, where I write it. So we're looking for the smallest size box and the highest price. So first, I'm going to look at the side that's labeled box size. So as the box size, it starts at 0. So that means the further I go this direction, the bigger I'm going to get, the bigger my box is going to get. So I'm looking for a small one, so I know the smallest needs to be closest to 0. So that means it's either going to be point A or point C, because those are the smallest. Those are the ones that on the box size axis are closest to 0. So I found that. My next step is to find the one with the highest price. So when I look at the price axis, the y-axis, I'm looking for the highest price. So C is really close to 0. So that means it has a pretty low price. But A is all the way up here, really far away from 0, which means it has a high price. So that means I'm going to select A, because A is close to 0 on the size one, which means that it's pretty small, but also it's really far away from 0 on the price side, which means that it's pretty expensive, that it has a high price. Which point represents a person who has fewer years of education but earns a higher annual income? So first we're going to start with the years of education, and fewer would mean smaller. So we're looking for the ones with the smaller years of education. So if I go to the years of education axis, see that this should be 0. And as we go further away, they're going to have more and more years of education. So you could think of it like this. Here's 1 year, here's 2 years, here's 3 years, here's 4 years, here's 5 years. Well, we know that the fewer years is going to be H and G. Now we're going to look for a higher annual income. So higher. So we're going to go to the annual income axis. And the person who makes more, well, H is pretty close to 0, but G is pretty high. So G is going to make a lot more than H. So G would have a higher annual income. So G is our correct answer. G doesn't have the highest annual income. That would be E. But that person also has a lot of years of education. The scatter plot shows the number of hours of television watched weekly and the student's grade. Oh, sorry, we're going to be on this one. The scatter plot shows the temperature and the number of frozen yogurt bars sold during 10 baseball games. Using the trend in the scatter plot, approximately how many yogurt bars can the home team plan to sell when the temperature reaches 80 degrees? So here's what we know. We know that the temperature is going to be 80 degrees. So I'm drawing on my screen. So first it says 10 baseball games, but neither one of these axes is labeled baseball games. So I know I don't need that. But I do know that the temperature is going to be 80 degrees. So I'm going to see that 80 degrees is right here. And I'm going to draw as straight of a line as I can on 80 degrees. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line through this scatter plot. So this is linear because even though it's not a perfect line, the general direction is a straight line. So you're not going to start and make it sure it goes through only the top ones. You're not going to make sure it goes through only the bottom ones. You're going to draw a line and make sure that it goes right through the general middle area of these. So I'm going to follow this plot and put an arrow through there. And so what I'm looking for is when it's 80 degrees, if this trend continues, about how many bars will be sold. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure and see what it's about. So it's a little crooked, but there. It should be around 60 degrees because when I'm following this up, I want to stop when I get to 80 degrees. And I can see that the amount of bars is going to be about 60. All right, we're going to do another example of the same one. A scatter plot shows the number of hours of television watched weekly and the student's grade average. With this data, a student who watches 25 hours of TV weekly would expect a grade of. So what do we know? First, we know that there's 25 hours of TV in a week. So that's on this axis right here. So we know I'm going to draw a line for 25 hours of TV. So somewhere about right here. All right. I'm going to draw a line through my scatter plot. It's going to show it's generally going to follow this line. But I didn't really need to do that on this one because my 25 is already right here within it. So now I'm going to draw another line and see what should their grade average be when they watch 25 hours of television. So it should be somewhere around 60, somewhere around 70. So that's what we'd be looking for. So we're going to try another one. The scatter plot shows the number of practice hours before a free throw competition and the number of free throws made during a 10-minute period. Using this trend on the scatter plot, how many hours of practice would be required to make 90 free throws? So what we know is we're going to have to make 90 free throws. All right. So we're going to go to the amount of free throws made in 10 minutes. And so we're going to go all the way up to 90. So we know that we need to stop whenever we get to 90 free throws. So we did that. Secondly, we're going to go ahead and put a line through our scatter plot that generally follows the direction of the scatter plot. So, this one's a little bit more spaced out, but we're still going to try to just generally follow that. And so we're making sure we get as many points as possible, kind of following in the middle. And we're going to see where that would end up being. So to me, it looks like that would be somewhere around 30. So this might not be the exact answer that Imagine Math gives you, but know that it's somewhere around 30. Next, which statement best describes the meaning of point T on the scatter plot? Well, T. So first let's look at what this axis is saying. Right here on T, it's saying that the age of whatever T is 7 years old. Now let's see what information we can get from the other axis. It's saying that the number of books owned is 6. Now the answer for this one should be that a student who is 7 years old owns 6 books.